On September 14, 2021, a search and rescue team in Yosemite National Park confirmed the presence of a living adult female beneath a fallen incense cedar marked with a red surveyor's X. The tree had collapsed during the previous winter. The location had been searched repeatedly. The woman had been missing for just over 2 years. She was conscious when responders reached her. She identified herself using the same name that had appeared on missing person posters since 2019. Her body weight was recorded at 43 kilograms. She showed no signs of exposure-related necrosis. There was no shelter visible from above. There was no clear explanation for how she had survived. Her name was Anna Whitmore. Anna Whitmore was 34 years old at the time she disappeared. She lived in Oakland, California, worked remotely as a civil engineering consultant, and had no history of untreated medical or psychiatric conditions. Her employment records showed consistent performance. Her personal emails and text messages showed no language indicating distress, intent to disappear, or conflict with others. Financial statements, reviewed later by investigators, showed no unusual withdrawals before her disappearance. In June of 2019, Anna submitted a formal permit application to Yosemite National Park for a solo, off-trail hiking excursion. The route described was conservative. It followed established trails through Tuolumne Meadows before branching into a permitted cross-country segment approved for experienced hikers. Anna had completed similar routes in Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Park within the previous 5 years. Her name appeared in trail registries. No prior incidents were recorded. She attended a pre-departure orientation at the ranger station on July 7, 2019 at 09:10 a.m. A ranger signed off on her plan after reviewing her equipment list. The list included a satellite locator beacon, a 2-liter water filtration system, weather-rated clothing, a paper map, a compass, and 5 days of food rations exceeding minimum recommendations. Her return date was listed as July 12, 2019. Witness statements from campground hosts confirm Anna was seen the evening before departure. She spoke with other hikers. She cooked a dehydrated meal. She charged her phone and beacon at a communal outlet. A host later stated she did not appear rushed or distracted. Anna began her hike at Sunrise Lakes Trailhead on July 8, 2019 at approximately 06:40 a.m. Her entry was recorded by a motion-activated trail camera installed for wildlife monitoring. She was wearing a gray long-sleeve shirt, black pack, and red trail shoes. Weather conditions were clear. The National Weather Service forecast showed no extreme weather expected for the following 72 hours. At 11:58 a.m., Anna used her satellite device to send a preset "All OK" message to 2 contacts. The message was received and logged through the service provider's system. This was the last verified communication sent by Anna Whitmore. She did not check in on July 9. On July 10, one of her designated contacts contacted park authorities after failing to receive the second scheduled message. Rangers initiated standard overdue hiker procedures at 16:20 hours. Her vehicle was located in the Sunrise Lakes parking area later that evening. It was locked. There were no signs of forced entry. Food wrappers and a water bottle were visible inside. A hasty search began the following morning. Ground teams followed her intended route. Canines were deployed. Helicopter flyovers were conducted along ridgelines and drainages. The satellite beacon signal was never reactivated. Investigators later confirmed the device was functional and had been tested days before the hike. Search logs from July 11 through July 16 document methodical coverage of the area. Teams recorded weather conditions, terrain visibility, and areas of negative findings. No clothing, footprints, or equipment belonging to Anna were recovered. Dogs did not maintain a consistent scent trail beyond the first 12 kilometers of her planned route. On July 17, search operations were scaled back. By July 22, the case transitioned from active rescue to recovery status. Anna's parents traveled from Minnesota. They met with park officials. They reviewed maps and reports. Her mother provided a recorded statement describing Anna as cautious and systematic. She stated Anna had never missed a scheduled check-in before. Her father asked whether it was possible Anna had chosen to disappear. Investigators responded that there was no evidence to support that conclusion. Media coverage began in early August. Articles described an experienced hiker who vanished without a trace. Online forums speculated about animal encounters, falls into hidden crevices, or voluntary disappearance. Park officials emphasized that no physical evidence supported any specific scenario. By the end of 2019, Anna Whitmore was listed as presumed deceased. In February 2020, the area experienced above-average snowfall. Several large trees fell across lesser-used sections of the backcountry. In spring, trail maintenance crews reopened main corridors. Off-trail zones were not resurveyed. In the months that followed, Anna's case became inactive. Her name remained in databases. Her photographs circulated periodically with anniversary coverage. Her family maintained contact with investigators. No new leads emerged. On September 14, 2021, at 07:32 a.m., a vegetation management crew reported discovering irregular markings on a fallen cedar approximately 4 kilometers southeast of Tenya Lake. The marking was a hand-painted red X, inconsistent with Park Service notation used in that zone. When the crew investigated further, they observed movement beneath the trunk. They contacted emergency services. What responders found beneath the tree would later force investigators to reopen every assumption made during the previous 2 years. Responders reached the fallen tree at 08:11 hours. The trunk had split lengthwise when it collapsed, leaving a hollowed cavity where the root ball had torn free. The opening was partially concealed by soil, branches, and accumulated needles. From above, it would have appeared as natural debris. Inside the cavity, Anna Whitmore was seated upright. Her knees were drawn close to her chest. Her back was supported by a section of exposed root. She was wrapped in layered fabric assembled from fragments of her original hiking gear. A plastic ground sheet had been trimmed and used as insulation between her body and the soil. Her vital signs were weak but stable. She was conscious and responsive to simple questions. When asked how long she had been there, she did not answer. When asked if there was anyone else with her, she shook her head once. A medic later noted she avoided eye contact during this exchange. Initial assessments showed no compound fractures. No frostbite was evident on hands or feet. Her skin was pale but intact. Hair samples taken later showed no uniform pattern of malnutrition-associated loss. Her nails were trimmed short. She was extracted using hand tools to avoid destabilizing the tree. The process took approximately 40 minutes. Throughout the extraction, Anna did not vocalize pain. She complied with instructions but did not initiate movement without prompting. At 09:02 hours, she was airlifted to a regional medical center. A ranger secured the site. Photographs were taken. The marked section of the tree was preserved for later analysis. By mid-morning, word of the discovery reached Park administration. A sealed incident command was established. Media inquiries were redirected. Family notification procedures were initiated. Anna's parents were contacted at 10:17 hours Central Time. The call log indicates a pause of 12 seconds before her mother responded verbally. Both parents traveled to California that afternoon. Medical staff began a full intake upon Anna's arrival. Her body mass index measured at 14.9. Blood work indicated prolonged caloric restriction, dehydration, and deficiencies consistent with survival-level intake rather than acute starvation. There were no signs of infection typically associated with extended exposure to unsanitary conditions. Dental examination showed minimal decay progression since her last recorded dental visit in 2018. Radiographic imaging revealed healed microfractures in several ribs and the left wrist. These fractures showed signs of having occurred months earlier, with no evidence of re-injury. Muscle atrophy was present but uneven, more pronounced in the lower extremities than the upper. When asked where she had been, Anna stated only that she had not been lost. She made this statement twice, using the same wording. Investigators reviewed her original equipment list. Several items were unaccounted for. Her satellite locator beacon was not found at the site. A damaged water filter was recovered nearby. Its casing showed prolonged use, but no recent breakage. The device was tested and found functional. The red X on the tree was examined by a park survey specialist. The paint was identified as exterior marking paint commonly used in construction. It was not a color issued to Yosemite crews. Brushstroke analysis suggested deliberate application using a narrow tip. The mark had been applied after the tree fell, not before. Rangers cross-referenced maintenance logs. No authorized personnel reported marking trees in that sector. No permits had been issued for surveying or timber work in that area during the relevant timeframe. Within 48 hours, investigators reopened Anna Whitmore's disappearance as an active case. Search logs from 2019 were re-examined. The location where Anna was found fell within a grid that had been flown over twice by helicopter. Ground teams had passed within 500 meters during canine sweeps. Aerial photographs from August 2019 were reviewed. The tree was standing at that time. No ground disturbance was visible beneath its canopy. It was determined that Anna could not have been in that cavity during the initial search phase. Medical staff noted Anna's caloric intake during recovery did not follow typical refeeding distress patterns. She tolerated gradual increases with limited gastrointestinal complications. This suggested her digestive system had adapted over time rather than shutting down completely. Psychiatric evaluation was initiated on day 3. Anna answered orientation questions accurately. She knew the date within 1 day. She identified the hospital and stated she understood she had been missing. When questioned about emotional state, she described feeling contained. She did not elaborate. Her parents arrived on September 16. The reunion took place under observation. Anna stood when her mother entered the room but did not move forward. Her father later described her expression as neutral. No physical embrace occurred. After several minutes, Anna asked if they had kept the house. Investigators conducted a brief, non-confrontational interview in the hospital. Anna confirmed she had entered the park alone and had not encountered aggressive wildlife. She stated she had not been injured during the initial days of the hike. When asked how she obtained food, she answered that she had planned to ration. When pressed on the length of time, she paused and then said, "Longer than planned." She refused to answer questions about the red marking. Forensic teams returned to the site. Soil samples were taken. Fabric fibers matching Anna's clothing were embedded in root structures beneath the trunk, indicating prolonged contact. Small caches of items were discovered within 50 meters, a metal cup blackened from repeated fires, a shallow pit containing charcoal residue, and stones arranged to divert water runoff. The fire pit showed signs of intermittent use over an extended period. Tree rings from a nearby sapling cut for kindling indicated multiple seasons of growth interrupted at different points. No footprints from other individuals were recovered. By late September, officials faced a contradiction. The physical evidence suggested Anna had survived alone in proximity to a location that had been repeatedly searched. Her statements suggested intent and planning. The marking on the tree implied awareness of future discovery. What investigators could not yet explain was when she had chosen to stop being found. Investigators expanded the search perimeter in October 2021, not to locate a suspect, but to reconstruct behavior. The objective shifted from how Anna survived to why she had remained undetected. Movement analysis was conducted using terrain modeling. From the cavity beneath the fallen cedar, there were 3 viable foot routes to water sources within a 1-kilometer radius. All required descending into shallow ravines screened from aerial view by tree cover. These ravines had not been prioritized during the original search due to low probability assessments and lack of distress indicators. Rangers reconstructed likely daily movement patterns based on caloric requirements and water access. The estimates suggested limited travel, repeated paths, and avoidance of exposed ridgelines. The pattern aligned with a person conserving energy rather than attempting extraction. Wildlife camera footage was reviewed retroactively. No clear images of Anna were identified. However, several clips showed unexplained disturbances, shifted branches, repeated rock displacement near streams, and fire-scarred stones appearing and disappearing over successive months. At the time, these had been attributed to animal activity or unauthorized campers. Meteorological records were reanalyzed. Winter of 2019-2020 brought prolonged snowpack, but fewer extreme cold snaps than average. Soil temperature logs showed conditions within survivable thresholds when insulation was present. Investigators concluded the cavity beneath the fallen tree, once created, would have provided stable thermal regulation. The timeline of the tree's collapse became central. Tree pathology reports dated the fall to late January or early February 2020, likely during a heavy snow event. That meant Anna could not have entered the cavity before that date. For at least 6 months after her disappearance, she had lived elsewhere. Search records showed that canine scent trails in July 2019 had faded near a granite outcrop less than 2 kilometers from her eventual location. That outcrop was revisited. Beneath it, teams found an eroded overhang, partially concealed by brush. Inside were remnants of cordage fibers consistent with Anna's pack straps and a flattened area of soil suggesting prolonged occupation. The site was small. It would not have been visible from the air. Investigators now proposed Anna had maintained a sequence of shelters, moving only when forced by weather, fire risk, or physical necessity. This mobility would have reduced the likelihood of detection. It also required sustained cognitive planning. Psychological consultants reviewed her interview transcripts. The phrase, "not been lost," was flagged. Analysts suggested it reflected internal framing rather than factual denial. From her perspective, navigation had not failed. Hospital staff documented Anna's behavior patterns. She ate slowly and stored uneaten portions in napkins despite reassurance of availability. She asked for lights to remain off at night. She positioned her bed to face the door and requested advance notice before anyone entered. None of these behaviors were inconsistent with long-term isolation. On October 3, investigators attempted a formal interview. Anna agreed under the condition that it be recorded and that questions remain procedural. She answered with measured precision. She corrected one timestamp provided by an investigator, citing the angle of the sun and the sound of meltwater as indicators. She declined questions framed around emotion. When asked directly why she had not activated her locator beacon, she stated it had ceased to be useful. When asked why, she said usefulness depended on intent. Officials explored the possibility of external involvement. Background checks revealed no known associates in the park during the relevant period. Cell tower data showed no unexplained pings in the vicinity. Financial records showed no incoming funds during her absence. There was no evidence of provisioning by another party. Forensic analysis of the red paint found trace silica and binder compounds matching a brand sold in California hardware stores. Purchase records could not be traced to Anna conclusively, though similar paint was listed in receipts from a renovation project she had consulted on years earlier. Her parents participated in mediated sessions. They reported Anna as independent but not estranged. She had spoken openly about stress related to workload, but had made no statements about withdrawal from society. When shown photographs of the shelters, her mother stated Anna had built similar structures during camping trips as a teenager. By November, public pressure increased. Officials were asked whether Anna had staged her disappearance. The park issued statements emphasizing her survival was not a crime. Privately, investigators were divided. Some viewed the case as extreme self-reliance. Others believed something had altered her decision-making after the search began. Medical evaluations showed Anna's cognitive function intact. There was no evidence of psychosis. However, long-term stress markers were elevated. Her cortisol patterns suggested sustained vigilance rather than episodic fear. When asked whether she expected to be found beneath the tree, Anna paused for nearly 30 seconds before answering. She said she expected the tree to fall eventually. She said the mark was to ensure someone would look underneath. She did not answer why she waited until then. After that interview, access to Anna Whitmore became restricted. Legal counsel was retained on her behalf. Investigators were advised that further questioning would require formal purpose and advanced notice. The case shifted again, this time from reconstruction to evaluation. Officials attempted to establish a clear point at which Anna could have safely exited the wilderness. Modeling showed dozens of opportunities. Seasonal trail traffic increased each summer. At least 9 ranger patrols had passed within 2 kilometers of her documented shelter sites after 2020. In several instances, smoke from unauthorized fires was reported in the broader area. None were traced to her location at the time. Investigators reviewed park records for all medical evacuations, lost hikers, and unusual calls during the 2-year period. No reports matched Anna's description. No emergency signals were received from her beacon. The device itself was still missing. By mid-November 2021, forensic labs completed analysis of the shelters. In each location, items were arranged with consistency. Tools were placed at the same relative distance. Food remnants were absent, suggesting either complete consumption or deliberate removal. There were no signs of hoarding beyond immediate use. This indicated control. One detail drew attention. In all shelters, small stones were stacked near the entrance. The stones varied in number but were always aligned in the same orientation. When asked, Anna stated the stones were used to check for interruption. She did not expand on what constituted interruption. Medical follow-ups showed improvement in weight and strength. However, staff noted limited affect. Anna did not display relief when informed she was safe. She asked few questions about the outside world. She requested no personal belongings beyond basic clothing. Her phone was returned to her at week 3. Records show she powered it on, scrolled through messages without opening them, and then turned it off. Her parents requested she come home. Anna declined, citing unspecified obligations. Hospital discharge planners noted she did not propose alternative plans. In December, investigators presented Anna with a timeline of her absence. They highlighted points where search teams had passed nearby. They asked whether she had heard aircraft or dogs. She acknowledged hearing helicopters. She stated she chose not to move. She stated movement would have increased visibility. This response was documented without follow-up. Park psychologists conducted an independent assessment. They concluded Anna's behavior did not meet criteria for delusional disorder or dissociation. Instead, they described a narrowed cognitive frame reinforced over time. Survival decisions had become default. Exit strategies had not. During one session, Anna was asked what she believed would have happened if she had been found earlier. She said the search would have stopped. When asked what she meant, she replied that once found, she would no longer be able to finish. No elaboration was provided. The note was flagged. In January 2022, the park formally closed the investigative phase. The report classified Anna's survival as voluntary prolonged backcountry isolation. No criminal conduct was identified. Recommendations included changes to search protocols regarding off-trail assumptions. Anna was discharged shortly thereafter. She did not attend a press conference. A written statement was released through counsel. It thanked responders. It acknowledged her family's distress. It stated her intention to remain private. She rented a short-term residence near the park boundary. Utility records confirm minimal power usage. Groceries were delivered bi-weekly. She paid in cash equivalents. She did not seek counseling services offered by the state. In April, a ranger conducting routine maintenance reported sighting an individual matching Anna's description near a restricted drainage area. The sighting was logged, but not acted upon. She was not violating any regulations. By summer 2022, Anna's case faded from national coverage. Internally, however, one unresolved issue remained. Tree ring analysis from the fallen cedar indicated the red X had been painted less than 3 weeks before discovery. Investigators could not identify who applied it. Anna had not returned to the site during that period, according to her own statements. No footprints from that timeframe were recovered. The mark had been placed deliberately, cleanly, and recently. When asked about this discrepancy in a final written inquiry, Anna responded with one sentence. She wrote that timing was a cooperative decision. No further clarification was given. In August 2022, a secondary review was quietly authorized after a park ecologist raised concerns about human impact patterns near the original site. The concern was not about Anna Whitmore, but about repeated microdisturbances inconsistent with animal movement alone. Motion sensors were placed along drainage corridors and near the fallen cedar. The placement avoided visibility to casual hikers. Data collection was framed as routine ecological monitoring. For several weeks, there was no activity. Then, on September 3 at 02:14 a.m., a sensor recorded motion beneath the tree. Infrared footage showed a figure approaching from the south. The individual moved slowly. A headlamp was used intermittently and shielded. The person paused near the trunk, knelt, and reached beneath the cavity. The visit lasted less than 3 minutes. The individual did not attempt to enter the space. The figure departed without leaving visible markers. The footage was inconclusive. Facial details were not discernible. The clothing appeared dark and layered. Gait analysis suggested familiarity with the terrain. Investigators compared the build and movement to available footage of Anna during her hospital recovery walks. The match was uncertain. The following week, another disturbance was logged, this time near the former overhang shelter. Stones arranged at the entrance had been restacked into a different configuration. No new tools or supplies were left behind. Rangers increased patrols. No confrontations occurred. When Anna was contacted through council and informed that monitoring indicated activity near her former shelters, she replied that others sometimes finish what was started. She did not identify who others were. Council advised no further comment. The idea that someone else might have been involved, not as a captor but as a participant, was explored. Investigators reviewed visitor logs, wilderness permits, and off-record ranger reports. No individual was identified as sharing significant off-trail overlap with Anna's timeline. Psychological analysts revisited her earlier statement about finishing. They proposed that the phrase could indicate a task-based framework unrelated to rescue or survival. The shelters, markings, and site maintenance suggested continuity beyond mere necessity. Environmental data offered a possible explanation. Long-term soil compaction beneath the cedar indicated repeated presence after Anna's removal. The frequency increased in the weeks following her discharge. In October, the park removed the fallen tree under safety protocols. Beneath it, investigators found additional markings carved into the soil hardpan. The markings were shallow but deliberate. They formed a grid-like pattern extending beyond the cavity. No explanation was recorded at the time. Anna relocated in November 2022. The new address was registered under a limited liability housing trust. She did not inform her parents. They learned through third-party correspondence. Contact between them diminished. Medical follow-ups ceased. No missing persons reports were connected to the area. By early 2023, monitoring equipment detected no further disturbances. The sites began to return to baseline conditions. Vegetation recovered. The case was archived again. In internal summaries, the final unanswered questions were listed without commentary. Why Anna chose to wait for the tree to fall, why the marking was applied so late, and whether survival had ever been the primary objective. The record notes that Anna never stated she wanted to leave the wilderness. She stated only that she left when the structure she depended on changed. In the last interview conducted, she was asked whether she considered her time in Yosemite an accident. She answered that accidents are unplanned. She said she had accounted for weather, injury, and hunger. She said she had not accounted for being found early. When asked what she would do if not found, she replied that the process would have continued. The interviewer asked for how long. Anna did not respond. In March 2023, an independent academic team requested access to the case files as part of a broader study on prolonged wilderness isolation and decision-making. Access was granted with redactions. The team did not interview Anna Whitmore. They relied entirely on medical records, investigative notes, and environmental data. Their preliminary conclusions described a pattern of intentional containment. Once Anna's movement radius narrowed, her environment became predictable. Predictability reduced risk. Over time, the objective appeared to shift from survival toward maintenance. Food acquisition was analyzed in detail. Foraged plant remnants identified near shelters included edible grasses, roots, and seasonal berries. None were consumed at levels suggesting aggressive caloric intake. The pattern suggested subsistence rather than optimization. Small animal trapping was considered, but largely unsupported. Bone fragments found near one site were later attributed to predators. Water sourcing was consistent. She positioned herself near meltwater channels with low turbidity. Filtration use appeared disciplined. There were no signs of waterborne illness in her medical history. Fire use was minimal but strategic. Burns on stones indicated controlled heat application, not warmth-seeking fires. Analysts suggested their function was food processing or sterilization. The absence of signaling behavior remained unexplained. No ground-to-air symbols were ever found prior to the red X. No smoke columns consistent with rescue attempts were documented. No auditory signaling. The tree marking was the only deliberate identifier. The academic team proposed that Anna's planning horizon had extended beyond typical rescue expectations. Once search efforts ended in July 2019, the external pressure to be found disappeared. After that point, every decision was internal. Investigators re-examined the beacon issue. The device had a self-test log showing normal operation up to July 11, 2019. After that, it was never reactivated. The battery should have lasted several months. The device was assumed intentionally disabled or discarded. Without it, Anna removed the mechanism that would have imposed interruption. In April 2023, Anna's former employer provided additional records. During the months before her disappearance, she had participated in a risk modeling project involving infrastructure failure in remote environments. Emails showed her interest in long-duration system stability under isolation. There was no indication this was linked to her hike, but investigators noted conceptual overlap. Her journals were never recovered. Family contact was reassessed. Anna's mother reported receiving a single handwritten note in late 2022. The envelope bore no return address. The note stated she was well and asked them not to worry. There was no invitation to respond. Handwriting analysis matched Anna's previous samples. By mid-2023, public discourse had largely moved on. Online speculation persisted but lacked new information. Officials declined interviews. The park cited privacy protections. What remained were records and silences. In internal training sessions, the case was used to illustrate limitations of search assumptions. Emphasis was placed on how movement patterns based on intention differ from those based on distress. The fact that Anna was not attempting extraction placed her outside every predictive model used in 2019. Late that year, a former ranger filed an addendum. He noted that during the initial search, he had briefly considered the possibility that the subject was deliberately avoiding recovery. The idea was dismissed at the time due to lack of precedent. The addendum concluded with a single observation. The only moment Anna actively increased the probability of discovery was when her body could no longer remain where it was. The tree had fallen. The cavity changed. At that point, remaining became incompatible with maintenance. According to the final medical summary, Anna demonstrated no relief response upon rescue. Stress indicators declined only after she was discharged and living independently again. The record does not describe her time in Yosemite as captivity. It describes it as a closed system. In January 2024, the National Park Service conducted a routine policy review. Anna Whitmore's case was referenced once, without elaboration, in a section addressing non-distress survivals. No amendments were proposed. There were no further confirmed sightings of Anna in Yosemite. Utility records associated with the housing trust showed continued minimal usage. Deliveries remained infrequent. No employment income was reported. There was no evidence of external financial support beyond savings accumulated before 2019. Her parents attempted contact twice more. The first email went unanswered. The second was returned unopened. Medical professionals who had treated Anna were later interviewed anonymously for a clinical journal. They described her as cooperative, oriented, and deliberate. None used language associated with trauma recovery. One clinician stated that Anna did not speak as someone returning from an ordeal. She spoke as someone transitioning between environments. The fallen cedar was fully removed in spring. Soil was graded. No marker remains at the site. To an untrained observer, the location now appears indistinguishable from surrounding terrain. Search equipment from 2019 was rotated out of service. Some items were auctioned as surplus. The radios and harnesses carry no external indication of their use history. Anna's missing person entry remains inactive but not closed. Her name has not been removed. From an investigative standpoint, the case rests on documented facts. Anna entered the park alone. She was not forcibly detained. She had the means to signal for help and chose not to. She survived through controlled behavior within a constrained area. She increased visibility only when the structure she relied on was no longer viable. No evidence exists of coercion. No evidence exists of accomplices. No evidence exists of escape attempts. In the final correspondence on file, dated April 2, 2024, an investigator asked Anna whether she wished the case to be formally closed. Her response was brief. She wrote that closure was not necessary. She wrote that the system had already resolved itself. There are no follow-up notes after that entry. The park continues to receive hundreds of solo hiker permits each season. Standard briefings remain unchanged. Rangers still emphasize signaling early and often. Most hikers comply. Anna Whitmore's case has not altered visitor behavior in any measurable way. The last mention of her in official records appears in a footnote referencing an exception. The exception states that some disappearances are not the result of loss, injury, or violence. Some are the result of deliberate continuation.